Now, a huge amount has happened since I brought leaders together at Lancaster House here in London. That was just 2 weeks ago. President Zelensky has shown once again, and beyond any doubt, that Ukraine is the party of peace. But Putin is trying to delay, saying there must be a painstaking study before a ceasefire can take place. Well, the world needs action, not a study, not empty words and conditions. So my message is very clear. And let's be clear why this is so important. Russia's appetite for conflict and chaos undermines our security back here at home in the United Kingdom. It drives up the cost of living. It drives up energy costs. So this matters deeply to the United Kingdom. And we won't sit back and wait for Putin to act. Instead, we will keep pushing forward. So the group I convened today is more important than ever. It brings together partners from across Europe, as well as Canada, Australia and New Zealand, with backing from others too, including Japan. We agreed we will keep increasing the pressure on Russia, keep the military aid flowing to Ukraine, and keep tightening the restrictions on Russia's economy.
Keir Starmer's stance on the Ukraine conflict is a staggering exercise in hypocrisy, political cowardice, and Orwellian manipulation. This is a man who, time and time again, has flatly rejected any serious consideration of diplomatic engagement or negotiation with Russia, instead aligning himself blindly with the most hardline voices demanding perpetual conflict. Under his leadership, the UK's foreign policy has devolved into a simplistic, morally self-righteous script. Arm Ukraine, endlessly tighten sanctions further, and fuel the proxy war under the guise of defending freedom and democracy. Yet, with breathtaking audacity, Starmer has the gall to cast himself and his government as principled peacemakers, while painting the Zelensky regime, an administration heavily reliant on Western arms and funding to sustain the war, as the very embodiment of peace. It is the height of Orwellian doublespeak. War is peace, escalation is diplomacy, and prolonging bloodshed is somehow rebranded as humanitarian concern. The irony is painful. Starmer, who lacks both the imagination and the backbone to challenge the prevailing orthodoxy of Western hawkishness, wraps himself in the language of peace while actively endorsing policies that ensure its absence. His approach is not rooted in strategic foresight or moral clarity, but rather in political expediency, an unwillingness to appear soft in the eyes of Washington, Brussels, or the British establishment. He has reduced complex geopolitical realities to a black-and-white morality play where any suggestion of negotiation is dismissed as appeasement and endless military support is hailed as virtuous. What makes Starmer's position all the more farcical is how thinly veiled his true intentions are. Beneath the platitudes and slogans, it is clear he is more concerned with protecting his political image than genuinely seeking an end to the conflict. He is content to let the Ukrainian people bear the brunt of a protracted, grinding war, provided it allows him to posture on the world stage as a steadfast ally and defender of peace. There is no strategic ingenuity here, no bold statesmanship, just an empty vessel parroting familiar lines, too timid to suggest a course of action that might actually bring the bloodshed to an end. In the end, Starmer reveals himself as the quintessential modern Western politician, risk-averse, morally shallow, and utterly dependent on the approval of other powers to justify his stance. He clings to the tired playbook of sanctions and military aid without once asking whether these measures are achieving peace or merely entrenching suffering. His invocation of peace, while championing policies of escalation, is not just disingenuous. It is a grotesque insult to the very concept of diplomacy. One almost has to marvel at the brazen cynicism of it all. If it weren't so transparently self-serving and so catastrophically devoid of true leadership.
But it's sort of Russian President Vladimir Putin has conditionally agreed to a US proposed short-term 30-day ceasefire. The bit I don't get is he wants to talk about the recognition of areas. He wants to talk about no deployment of foreign troops. Is he saying, this is the bit I don't understand, is he saying, I will sign the ceasefire deal provided these things are on the table to be negotiated? Or is he saying, I won't sign it unless we agree these already? Or is he, as you hinted, just stringing the whole thing out?
He's stringing it out, but it's the bit you missed. And it's the bit that they buried in the news agency reports. And it really matters to Vladimir Putin, the root causes, how all this began. What he is looking for, and you hinted at it in the previous interview, is that he's looking for a relationship with America and a recognition. Again, we're back to the early 1990s. He wants Russia not to be humiliated, but but to be recognized as a premier, as a paramount power of Eurasia, and to be the partner. Europe and the EU to be diminished, Russia to rise, and we'll do our part of the world. You have America and China. The thing going in the background is that I think Russia desperately wants to detach itself a little bit more, never break up entirely, but they're very, very worried. I know this. Elements in the Kremlin are really worried about the grip that Beijing has in every sense, in armaments, in technology, in money, and who knows, maybe even manpower.
So we could then go from the situation we're in, where Putin and Russia are the pariah state and have been for many, many years in the views of most, and with some really quite good reason. You're saying this whole thing could pivot the other way, and that we get a ceasefire deal, we get an agreement, and that they start to trade more with the West. But that would have to include Europe too, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would.
That's going to be difficult.
I think it could be done because you've got it, you've nailed it. There are elements in Germany even, but particularly Italy, who are desperate to get that gas flowing, gas flowing.
I know.
Even more. So you're saying, look, so you can't do this trading, the land of Marco Polo, the trader, the merchant who goes east, come on. But the figure they invoke, which is a very interesting amount of great myth, Enrico Mattei, who reinvented the petrochemical industry for Italy post-war, post Mussolini. And that is alluded to. There's a lot more in play here than might appear. It's well worth reading the key speeches. There are two of Putin's career when he rises to power. One, his declaration to the Munich Security Conference in 2007. I know you stand for international law and order, but you are abusing international organizations for, the word is he uses, vulgar individual gain. And then the year after, what did they do? Ignored all that and said, well, at the Bucharest NATO summit.
Robert Fox's analysis reveals the broader geopolitical game at play behind Putin's proposed ceasefire conditions. It is evident that Putin's objectives transcend the immediate battlefield realities of Ukraine. At the heart of his strategy lies a desire to reposition Russia as a paramount global power, one whose influence is indispensable in shaping the post-Cold War world order. By floating the possibility of a ceasefire, Putin is not offering a genuine path to peace, but rather employing a calculated diplomatic maneuver designed to compel recognition from the United States while deliberately sidelining and diminishing the role of the European Union. This reflects a long-standing Russian strategy of exploiting fractures within Western alliances, undermining European unity, and elevating Moscow's leverage in negotiations. Furthermore, Fox hints at a subtle but significant shift in Russia's global alignment. After years of drawing closer to China, largely out of necessity following Western sanctions, there are signs that Putin may be seeking to loosen that dependence. Re-engagement with the West, particularly with Washington, offers Moscow a chance to recalibrate its foreign policy, creating more strategic autonomy rather than remaining locked in a subordinate position to Beijing. Thus, Putin's ceasefire proposal is not so much an olive branch as it is a power play, using the war as a bargaining chip to reshape global power dynamics. reclaim prestige, and reassert Russia's centrality on the world stage.